Big mistake if you ignore this, because these wheat pennies are still in circulation, and people are spending them without knowing their real value. One wrong move, and you could lose a serious amount of money instantly. Something about this coin feels wrong the moment you look at it, like it's been hiding in plain sight for decades, waiting for someone sharp enough to notice. A simple 1,946 wheat penny, no mint mark, the kind people toss into jars or hand over at stores without a second thought. But this one carries a silence that screams value. Most people don't realize this was a turning point year in America, right after World War II, when the U.S. economy was shifting, materials were controlled, and minting pressure was extremely high. That pressure created mistakes, variations, and coins that collectors now chase like gold. Now, look closer in your mind. The obverse shows Lincoln's strong profile, but in this version, it's dark brown, almost antique black in spots, like time pressed itself into the metal. The reverse wheat design isn't just decoration, it's a symbol of post-war recovery. You'll see 1 cent and United States of America wrapped in history, not just text. This isn't just a penny. It's a surviving artifact from an overloaded mint system that was rushing production faster than quality control could keep up. And here's where it gets serious. This coin is 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, weighing about 3.11 grams, with a diameter of 19 millimeters and a thickness close to 1.52 millimeters. It feels ordinary in the hand, but survival like this today is anything but ordinary. Millions were made, but most were melted, damaged, or spent into oblivion. Finding one with this natural dark toning and gray-black spotting, that's where collectors start paying attention. Do not spend this coin if you ever find it. That's the mistake people make every single day. And never clean it. Cleaning destroys the original surface, and that original toning is what tells collectors it has survived untouched. One wipe can erase thousands in value instantly. Professional grading companies don't want shine. They want authenticity, darkness, and natural aging that proves history stayed intact. Now here's the obsession factor. Collectors don't just want 1,946 wheat pennies. They hunt for emotional condition. The deeper tone, the uneven wear, the untouched edges, these tiny details create bidding wars. Auction rooms go quiet, then explode in aggressive offers when a piece like this appears. Some collectors literally hold these coins instead of selling, waiting years for demand to rise even higher. Why does 1,946 matter so much? Because it sits right after wartime production stress. The U.S. Mint was transitioning, workers were exhausted, materials were inconsistent, and die wear increased. That combination created subtle variations that didn't seem important then, but today, they are everything. Even missing or weak mint details can turn ordinary pennies into collector targets. Right now, in today's market, coins like this, in exceptional condition and rare preservation, can reach staggering levels, serious life-changing money. Not because it's flashy, but because it survived when almost everything like it disappeared. This is hidden wealth sitting in circulation, quietly ignored by millions. And the scariest part? You might have already spent one without knowing. Collectors are still pulling these from old jars, estate collections, and pocket change, holding them tight like silent fortunes. Demand is rising, supply is shrinking, and every year makes survivors even harder to find. If you think this is rare, the next coin is even more unpredictable, even more dangerous to overlook, and what it hides will shock you even further. It looks like nothing at first, just another worn 1,936 wheat penny sitting in circulation, the kind you'd barely glance at, before dropping it into a cash register. But if you pause for even a second longer, something about it feels different, almost like it's been buried in time and pulled back into the present by accident. A coin like this doesn't just exist in your pocket change, it survives history. And most people never realize what they're holding until it's already gone. 1936 sites in a strange and powerful moment in American history. The country was still crawling out of the Great Depression. Unemployment was crushing families, and every penny mattered more than ever. The U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of coinage to keep the economy moving. That pressure created inconsistencies, subtle variations, and coins that were never meant to become valuable collectibles. But that's exactly what makes this 1936 wheat penny so dangerous to ignore today. Now imagine it in your hand. The obverse shows Abraham Lincoln's profile, sharp nose, calm expression, but on this specific piece, time has rewritten the surface. The dark brown tone is deep, almost like burnt wood, with black antique spotting spread unevenly across the fields. Then there are those strange green patches, oxidation marks, formed slowly over decades, a chemical fingerprint of age, copper, soil, and air all fighting each other. It doesn't look clean, and that's exactly why collectors get obsessed with it. Turn it over in your mind, and the reverse reveals the iconic wheat stalks framing 1 cent and United States of America. But on a coin like this, the lettering doesn't feel fresh. It feels like it has been whispered into the metal and worn down by millions of hands. This design was created to symbolize agricultural strength and national unity, but today it represents something even bigger: survival. This coin is composed of 95% copper with trace elements of tin and zinc, giving it that classic heavy copper feel. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, with a diameter of 19 millimeters and a thickness around 1.52 millimeters. On paper, it sounds ordinary. In reality, that exact physical consistency is what makes wheat pennies so easy to overlook, and so powerful when rarity shows up inside them. And here's where things get serious. The minting conditions in 1936 were not peaceful or stable. The economy was still fragile. Production demand was rising, and the U.S. Mint was pushing output while maintaining quality standards under stress. That combination led to die wear, weak strikes in some batches, and subtle surface differences that collectors now spend years hunting for. Most people never notice these details, but experts do. Now listen carefully. Do not spend this coin if you ever find it. That is the mistake that destroys hidden wealth instantly. And never, ever clean it. That dark brown tone and those black-green antique spots are not damage in the eyes of collectors. They are proof of authenticity, proof of survival. Cleaning strips away decades of history and can turn a rare collectible into a worthless penny in seconds. What makes this 1936 wheat penny truly dangerous in the collecting world is its emotional pull. Collectors don't just see metal, they see a surviving artifact from an America struggling to rebuild itself. They see a coin that passed through Depression-era hands, wartime build-up years, and decades of circulation without disappearing. That emotional weight drives competition in auctions more than logic ever could. Auction behavior around coins like this is intense but quiet at first. Serious collectors study it silently, analyzing tone, surface, strike quality, and wear patterns. Then bidding escalates fast. Not because it's flashy, but because pieces like this are getting harder to find in untouched condition. Some collectors refuse to resell once they acquire one, because they know replacement is almost impossible. And that's the real danger. supply is shrinking every year. These coins are still out there in jars, drawers, old wallets, and yes, even in everyday circulation. People keep spending them without realizing they're giving away something that could represent serious money, silent fortune, life-changing value hidden in a 1-cent piece. Right now, high-condition examples of this 1,936 wheat penny, even without famous errors, can reach extraordinary auction levels when preservation and surface quality align just right. Not because it's rare in mintage, but because it's rare in survival. That's the difference most people never understand. So if you ever come across a coin like this, stop immediately. Look closer than you ever have before. Because what feels like pocket change could actually be a piece of hidden wealth that time refused to erase. And just when you think this story can't get more intense, the next coin steps into an even darker, more mysterious chapter of wheat penny history, where small details turn ordinary cents into collector obsession. It starts with something almost laughable, a 1,958D wheat penny. The kind of coin most people assume has no real value, something you'd toss into a tip jar without a second thought. But that's exactly how hidden wealth survives in plain sight, by looking completely ordinary. And this specific 1,958D, carries a surface that tells a very different story the moment you slow down and actually look. Because 1,958 isn't just another year, it's the final chapter of the wheat penny era. The last breath before the Lincoln Memorial design took over in 1959. That alone creates pressure in the collector world. End-of-era coins always become emotional targets, because once production stops, people realize what they lost. And that late realization is exactly what drives value decades later. Now, picture it closely. The obverse shows Abraham Lincoln's profile, but instead of a clean copper shine, this one carries a cold gray tone, like metal that has been weathered through decades of silence. The surface isn't smooth. It feels aged, almost industrial, as if it absorbed every hand it passed through. Then green oxidation spots appear across the fields, subtle but unsettling, like nature slowly reclaiming the coin. Flip it in your mind. The reverse shows the iconic wheat ears framing 1 cent and United States of America, but here the design feels heavier, darker. Black antique spotting spreads across the surface like ink fading into copper. It doesn't look new, and it doesn't look fake. It looks like history that refused to disappear. This coin carries the classic 95% copper composition with 5% tin and zinc, weighing approximately 3.11 grams. Its diameter is 19 millimeters with a thickness close to 1.52 millimeters. On paper, it sounds identical to millions of others, but in reality, the difference is in survival, not specs. Because what matters isn't how it was made, it's how it endured. Now here's where the 1,958D becomes even more interesting. The D mint mark, struck at Denver, represents one of the final high-production phases of wheat pennies. The mint was operating at full speed, transitioning toward new designs, and quality control was becoming inconsistent in small but meaningful ways. That combination created subtle variations in strike pressure, surface finish, and die wear patterns that collectors now obsess over. And this is where most people make a critical mistake. They see a dark, worn penny like this and assume it is damaged. But in the collector world, original toning is not damage, it is identity. Do not spend this coin if you ever find it. And never clean it. Cleaning destroys the natural oxidation layer, and that layer is what proves decades of untouched survival. Without it, the coin loses its historical voice instantly. The green spots on this coin are especially important. That oxidation is copper reacting slowly over time with moisture and air exposure. To an untrained eye, it looks like corrosion. To a collector, it signals age, authenticity, and environmental history. Combined with black spotting and gray toning, it creates a surface pattern that serious collectors immediately recognize as naturally aged copper. Collectors don't just chase rarity, they chase emotion. And at a 1958D wheat penny hits them right at the end of an era. Because this is not just a coin, it is the final wheat penny generation. That emotional weight drives demand far more than most people realize. When these pieces appear at auction, bidding doesn't always start loud, it starts silent. Careful, focused. Then, suddenly competitive, as multiple collectors realize what they're seeing. Some hold these coins instead of selling them, waiting for the perfect market moment. Others store them in sealed collections, knowing replacements are getting harder every year. Because even though 1958D pennies were mass-produced, surviving examples with this kind of untouched surface character are shrinking fast in circulation. And here's the part most people underestimate. Everyday people are still spending these coins without a second thought. That means hidden wealth is constantly leaving hands unnoticed. A coin like this could pass through 10 people in a single week, and nobody would realize its significance. Right now, in strong preservation condition with desirable toning and collector appeal, coins like this can reach extraordinary auction attention. Not because they are rare in number alone, but because they represent the emotional ending of a 50-year design era in U.S. coinage history. So if you ever see a 1958 wheat penny, especially one with dark gray surfaces, green oxidation, or black antique spotting, stop immediately. That is not just change. That is a closing chapter of American coin history sitting in your hand. And just when it feels like the story of wheat pennies is reaching its peak, there is still one more coin left. And this next one is not just rare. It is the kind collectors describe as nearly impossible to ignore. It doesn't scream for attention, it whispers. A 1939 wheat penny with no mint mark. The kind of coin that slips through human hands every single day without anyone stopping to ask what it really is. But this one feels different the moment you imagine it. Like it's carrying weight far beyond its size, like it remembers a world just before everything changed. Because 1939 wasn't just another year, it was the edge of global tension. Europe was collapsing into World War II, the United States was preparing for economic and industrial transformation, and the US. Mint was under rising pressure to produce consistent coinage during uncertain times. That pressure didn't just affect politics, it affected metal, machinery, and even the smallest details struck into pennies like this one. Now picture it slowly. The obverse shows Abraham Lincoln's profile, but instead of bright copper shine, this coin carries a muted gray-black surface, like smoke pressed into metal. Across it, green oxidation spots appear in scattered patterns, almost like time-left fingerprints. It doesn't look clean, and that's exactly what makes it powerful. Because real collectors don't chase perfection, they chase survival. Turn it in your mind. The reverse shows the iconic wheat stalks framing 1 cent and United States of America. But on this coin, the design feels aged, almost ghost-like. The letters are still readable, but softened by decades of circulation. Black antique spotting spreads unevenly, creating a surface that feels more like archaeology than currency. This coin is made from the classic wheat penny composition, 95% copper, 5% tin, and zinc. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, and has a thickness close to 1.52 millimeters. But numbers don't tell the story here. Survival does. Because what you're looking at is not just metal specifications. It's a piece of pre-war America that somehow escaped being lost, melted, or forgotten. And here's where the 1939 penny becomes dangerous to overlook. This was a transition era in mindset, not just manufacturing. The world was shifting toward conflict, and production standards were under silent strain. The US Mint was focused on volume and consistency, which means small variations in strike quality, die wear, and surface finishing were quietly entering circulation. Most people never noticed. Collectors notice everything. Now listen carefully. Do not spend this coin if you ever find it. That is the fastest way people destroy hidden value without realizing it. And never clean it. Cleaning removes the original patina, the natural oxidation that tells the full survival story of the coin. Once that surface is gone, so is most of its collector identity. What looks like making it shiny actually erases decades of worth in seconds. What makes this 1939 wheat penny even more intense is its emotional weight in the collector world. This is not just another early wheat cent. It sits near the edge of the Great Depression recovery era, just before wartime production demands fully reshaped American minting. Collectors see it as a surviving witness of a fragile America holding itself together. That's why demand stays steady, and why competition quietly builds when coins like this appear. Auctions don't always explode immediately. Sometimes they start with silence. Careful evaluation, then hesitation, then sudden aggressive bidding when two collectors realize neither wants to lose it. That's how hidden value reveals itself, not loudly, but strategically. And the truth, most people never realize. Coins like this are still moving through everyday life. Pocket change, old jars, forgotten drawers, passed around without a second thought. People are literally spending pieces of history because they don't know how to see them. Right now, in strong, preserved condition, with natural toning and collector-desired surface character, a 1939 wheat penny like this can command extraordinary attention in the market. Not because it is the rarest coin ever made, but because it survived untouched long enough for collectors to care deeply about its existence. So if you ever come across a 1939 wheat penny with grey-black toning, green oxidation spots, and deep antique surfaces, stop immediately. Don't rush it. Don't clean it. Don't dismiss it. Because in your hand, it might not just be a penny. It might be the last quiet piece of an America right before everything changed. And as this series ends, there's one question left hanging in the air. How many more hidden fortunes are still sitting in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to finally notice them?